Hello and a very warm welcome to this episode of Leading in the New. I'm Kukuletu Cele. Now, the South African economy continues to struggle, and indicators show that the growth trend is at its lowest. Small and medium enterprises have certainly been identified as productive drivers for inclusive economic growth and development. And that's not only in South Africa, but a common theme throughout the world. But today we'll be looking at what needs to be done to help grow this sector that employs so many South Africans. In studio with me to shed some light on the topic, I have my esteemed panelists who will be sharing their insight and analysis into this particular conversation. Zandile Njamela, who's Enterprise Supplier Development Program Lead at Accenture. Tebogo Bokobo, who is the founder of Pixel Entropy. Felix Sekatawa, who's the founder and MD of BusyTech Innovations, and Thabo Shokholo, who's the founder of Afrocast. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time today. I'm certainly looking forward to the conversation, especially because it comes at a critical time regarding the background and the current status of South Africa's economic performance at the moment. And as we know, when all these economic headwinds are faced, SMEs and entrepreneurs are at the coalface of all these challenges. But again, Zandile, perhaps let me start off with you by trying to get an understanding of the current landscape regarding entrepreneurship in South Africa, and more importantly, how corporates like Accenture are trying to change the dialogue that's currently taking place, not only between corporates, but entrepreneurs themselves.
Thank you so much, Gugu, and an honor to be on your show today. So in Accenture, we've got our Enterprise and Supply Development Program, and this is how Accenture, in a unique way, support the development of SMEs, right, and provide them access to market for economic empowerment and job creation. So this is how it's a vehicle in terms of what are we doing to support Black SMEs and link them up into the mainstream economy. So I definitely agree to you when you say that SMEs are the catalyst of change in terms of the current situation when you talk about unemployment. And the focus should be on entrepreneurship. The focus should be on Black entrepreneurship because the market currently supports that, where Black SMEs and Black entrepreneurs can definitely flourish in the market.
Now, to your left are some of the beneficiaries of this particular program, but I want to get into why Accenture does this, and secondly, how it does it so well that it becomes more than just a box-ticking exercise when it comes to potential CSI projects and additional initiatives.
100%. So it's definitely gone beyond a box-ticking exercise for us. It is something that is at a core and at the fundamental of our values as an organization. And how we do it so well is basically three different elements, right? The most important one is that it's unique, number one, because of the selection criteria we use. We use the selection in terms of we respond to business ideas. So when you see my beneficiaries here, all of them has a potential offering that they can offer to Accenture. By that way, we are bridging the gap in terms of access to market. And then how do we develop them? First is targeted business development. There we're talking about targeted training, the type of training we provide them, and also operational efficiency, the key ingredients that we put in the business to make sure that the business operates at a low cost. So we're talking about assisting them lower the overheads in terms of development, lower the overheads in terms of labor costs. All right. The second pillar in terms of how we do it so well, we've got a mentorship arm. So all our beneficiaries are linked up to a senior executive at Accenture who is there to assist them with the daily operations. That's the first thing. The second thing, the mentor is there to look out for growth opportunities. One, within Accenture, two, within our clients, and number three, within the market. So they've got that visibility, right? And the third part, in terms of how we make sure that we provide sustainable growth for our beneficiaries, is that we inject them in terms of supply chain integration. So we've got 12 beneficiaries currently this year. 11 of them are outside our supply chain. So what that means, they've never transacted with Accenture before. And my biggest goal is to make sure that when they exit the program after 2 years, there's transaction with Accenture, meaning that we change them from outside enterprises into suppliers. And they can be suppliers in terms of subcontracting with us, or They can be business partners, business delivery partners at client engagements. So with those 3 pillars, 1, it's very unique. 2, it's very targeted. And number 3, we use our own internal resources where we leverage to support these entrepreneurs. So we use what we use in the market at our clients, right? So we use that winning formula that we will use to create high-performing businesses with our clients, to create high-performing SMEs. And that's our fundamental success of the program.
All of this wouldn't be possible without the human capital involved and the entrepreneurs themselves being innovative thinkers, looking to disrupt the market and really using technology and innovation as an enabler for them to have this opportunity as well to contribute to the economic landscape in South Africa. Tebogo, perhaps let me start off with you just to get an overview of your journey into entrepreneurship. All 3 of you can certainly respond to this question, but so often it's said that entrepreneurs are born and not made. And we know that's an ongoing debate, but give us your reasons and the rationale as to what leapfrogged you into the space of entrepreneurship. And again, what really piqued my interest is that looking at your website, the first description is that it's people over profits, when so often people think that entrepreneurship is an easy way just to make a quick buck.
Well, I don't know whether, okay, let me start with the people over profits line within the website. It pretty much captures the fact that, I mean, if you profit-driven, you forget to give the solution.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you busy chasing the numbers, yet the solutions you propose probably won't have return business because they could be bought first time round. But then, you know, for it to be reconsidered for a second buy, if it doesn't address the people's or the person's need, and then, you know, your profit that you're chasing is actually out the window. Yeah.
And it's the people ultimately who determine where
Absolutely.
the profit goes,
so,
as you say.
I mean, you need to have people as the motivation.
But your journey into entrepreneurship, all
Yeah.
of you are innovators, could have worked for any other IT institution or ICT institution and firm. Why the need and the gut to start up your own establishment?
With experience of having worked for a big corporate, I worked at Times Media and I was in the online sales team. And when mobile apps actually came to being and the Sunny Times was launching its Sunny Times app, I was in the app sales team and heading up the corporate sales. And then, you know, just through interacting with big corporates such as Vodacom and other possible large entities who were looking to partner with Times Media, I found that there could be an opportunity for me to try to use the skill set that I've acquired in order to start something for myself. Because when I looked at the numbers and the profits, I felt like maybe I could get a little bit more involved in this picture.
Then just the commission, right?
Yeah.
And Tabo, I take it the story for yourself is also quite the same, because you also deal with app development too.
Yes, my journey into app development comes from my background in IT. I love taking risks, and I saw apps coming along in the industry, and I saw an opportunity. I saw that, you know what, even though I was in IT, I know a lot of people know that I dabbled in music. I have been in the music industry, and before then, I was working a 9 to 5. So it was a calculated risk to leave my 9 to 5 and go into the music industry full time. And I left the music industry. Now I'm in IT, but on my own, building apps. So apps, as we can see now, they are part of everyday life. And I was lucky to be part of the people who saw this from the initial onset and saw that, you know what, I can capitalize in this space. So with my app experience, I'm now going back to music and offering the services from IT back to music.
Goodness, so certainly coming full circle, and perhaps on a lighter note, proving that your liquids are quite deep. But Felix, perhaps let's come to you to get your perspective on your foray into the entrepreneurship space. And following this is where I want us perhaps to build up on the conversation to really understand the challenges that are faced and how programs like the one that Accenture has established actually aid and facilitate growth and ongoing motivation to expand on some of these innovations that you've developed. But Felix, your personal story, was it as easy as what we'd like to believe?
I don't know. Let me tell it, and then you can judge for yourself. I think mine is a unique one. Fortunately, I had the privilege of spending 10 years at Accenture. So that is 10 years in employment. And then 10th year, I'm like, around the 8th year, I'm like, okay, it looks like there's a lot out there that can be done beyond Accenture, because I felt Accenture guided me. I always used an analogy of, I think Accenture is a very powerful, good academy for entrepreneurs. But you need to decide when to graduate from it, just like another degree. So I think 10 years on, I decided I wanted to graduate, and no one believed me in Accenture. Said, Felix, where are you going? Are you joining competition? And I said, no, I'm not joining competition. I'm actually going home to think. And it sounded very weird, but the real opportunity was around identifying, having been part of a huge multinational such as Accenture, identified that usually multinationals, there's a gap that can be filled by small businesses. There's an element of risk that the big organizations cannot take, but because of the flexibility and the agility of a small organization, you can actually come in quickly, you make decisions quicker, and then later on, that's when I had that this program was open. I said, okay, let me go back and see if I can really explain this gap to Accenture to understand it, to nurture me in a different light, so that I'm able to actually add value to Accenture. So my value proposition, for instance, as a small business to Accenture is that I understand the organization 10 years in. I'm able to nurture people that they bring in at junior levels in Accenture using my experience.
Yes. Well, Thabo, clearly interesting insights that come through from your journey. But Felix, let's get your insight as well as a fellow entrepreneur here on the panel to understand your entrepreneurial journey. Is it as simple as what we'd all like to believe as outsiders looking in?
Well, simple is relative, but let me tell it, and then you can make the call yourself. Interesting enough, I spent over 10 years of my earlier career with Accenture. So I was honed my thinking and everything for 10 years into that entrepreneurial spirit, but within, as part of a huge organization, massive organization. But at the 10-year mark, I think I felt like I'd been through this academy and I was ready to graduate. And for me, graduation meant that I needed to go and start on my own and take on risks on my own. Yeah, my colleagues in Accenture thought it was the biggest joke, because it's unheard of walking away from employment, secured job, to this field of landmines called entrepreneurship, or so they call it. But I had the appetite for it, and I think after some time, like any entrepreneur might profess, I started to realize that, access to market is a problem. The cost of resources is quite high, and much as I was enjoying the benefits of being agile and being able to respond quickly, running an organization of 3 to 5 people, I realized very quickly that I needed to go back to Accenture in some form of, and for a very long time I was trying to seek for help, saying, I know the organization, I know you can help. And eventually I got to learn of the ESDP program, which obviously offered to solve some of our problems. But I went back and said as well, you know what, I have 10 years of experience with this organization with me, and you have people who are just walking into Accenture doors, very junior from university. By partnering and supporting me, I'm able to infuse that knowledge, because it's not gone. So we sort of found a middle ground in which I could benefit from the organization and the big brand opening markets and access to candidates, but as well Accenture can benefit in terms of that experience that I have. So it feels like I never left, actually. So that's how I got into it. And yeah, today it's about coming to 4 years, and I don't think I've ever made a better decision.
One more year to go before that 5-year mark clocks in, right? Where the concerns actually creep in as to how many companies survive that 5-year mark. But the typical story of many entrepreneurs is that before they manage to meet an Accenture or other individuals who might look to support them, especially going the ongoing drives that we have to cultivate a culture of entrepreneurship in South Africa, it starts with an idea. You want to implement it, but then you need capital. And that's always a challenge that we find within the South African fraternity. But from each of your stories, and perhaps Tebogo, let's start off with you to get your view on how easy was it to access a capital, and if you had to source innovative ways, especially given the fact that you're dealing with technology and innovation here. This is not saying I'm baking cakes, this is the equipment I need, and here's the end product. Digital changes all the time, right?
Yeah. Look, in a way, it was challenging to be able to sustain the project that we were trying to get into market with. Pixel Enterprise first project was developing an app for the Gauteng Department of Health, and we're fortunate enough that the proposition was bought into. But now, payment terms and getting access to that funding, government has its own terms, and you don't get paid before you complete the work. And app development can be quite a long process, and obviously keeping your developers happy and everyone that's within your ecosystem of your product development still within the team without a budget was a challenge. So I mean, that led to me knocking on a couple of doors, trying to get funding from different funding bodies, and with no business account that has some sort of history, and no legacy whatsoever. It's not easy for you to even get a second meeting with the bank, or even with the funding bodies such as CIFA, or here in Gauteng there's a Gauteng Enterprise Propeller.
How long did it take before it actually got together?
I mean, look, we actually for the first year of the app's development, we pretty much survived on I'd say I survived mainly on support from family, and actually managed not to get any funding for the first year of the app development. Only within the second year, which is this year, that we managed to get some funding, because there was some track record that shows that the business has been in existence for a year. So there is a business account with a bit of activity. But up until we got our first payment from our first big project, it really, I mean, after knocking on so many doors, we actually kind of realized that, it's just a matter of not giving up and keeping your family believing that you are not.
That's not always easy, though.
Making up this story that no, it's coming, the money is coming, So it was a bit challenging, but then I mean there was faith. But then, I think it's a matter of stamina. If you don't believe that you'll survive, or if you also so focused on that profit, like we mentioned earlier, you're never gonna get there. And if you believe in your proposition, you know that you have to stick it out. And sometimes one didn't even have money to get to meetings and to be able to propose, to even try to ask for that funding. But then obviously it's, I think government has initiatives that it has put out, and it is trying. I mean, there's Gauteng Growth and Development Agency, and it has a funding arm. The GTI has also got, that's the Department of Trade and Industry. They have funding initiatives which they put in place. And I think they're availing opportunities. But in the first year, if you know one, it's very hard to get off the starting blocks. Yeah.
And I'd just like to add there, that's one, the misconception that most people have, and also entrepreneurs trying to enter into the space, is that first you need funding. So Accenture became very innovative in terms of, we understand the element that there might be operational cost when you start your business, especially like Tebogo has said that app development is a continuous long journey and continuously have to infuse money into it. So what we did in terms of our program, we have partnered with different institutions to make the journey into access to finance easier and not tedious in terms of the paperwork overload. And most institutions, as per Tebogo's story, don't fund startup capital.
Yeah.
Okay, so they definitely have to struggle. And in our program, we try to mitigate that by having these strategic partners with these funding institutions. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that, again, how do we bypass access to finance? Because ultimately, if that money is not a grant, it's a loan that increases your working capital. So, sorry, not your working capital, but your operational cost, right? Because you need to pay it back. And it could be a long journey from the time that you take out that loan to when the next payment comes in. And through the program, what we've done, especially in Tebogo's case, is that we've done and assisted him in completing the development, thereby reducing the operational cost, thereby reducing the need to go out and borrow money to obviously fund that cost of development and completing his app. So, I mean, you spoke about innovation. It's definitely continuously changing, right? And we also continuously changing with the times and becoming very innovative in the program in terms of how do we support the next big ICT companies. And the guys sitting here, they are the next big companies. So definitely we become very agile when we need to respond to their needs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because so often, especially in the South African market, though, we find that the regulatory framework perhaps doesn't keep up with the agility of individuals like yourselves when it comes to creating these new products and innovative platforms. So once you've got the capital sorted, you come up with these amazing innovations, but how do we deal with challenges like intellectual property in South Africa, how these are registered, and more importantly, ensuring that, sure, you might have a corporate partnership with Accenture, but your idea remains your idea and you can continue to run your own organization without the fear of many entrepreneurs, which is getting swallowed up by this larger institution, which is actually playing a big brother role. What's the experience been like? Perhaps, Thabo, let's get your feedback, and Felix, feel free to come in.
Our experience going into it, I mean, when we look at copyright, especially in tech, people, I think they overrate it. There's this obsession that, you know, when you have an idea, you have to protect it. You can't share it with anyone. But if you don't share it, you might be having an idea which solves a non-existent problem. So when we went in, they did ask us, how do you guys feel? Because when we went into Accenture, we had a prototype built, a platform built, but we had to give them our source code and have their developers access it so that they can build it, which is what's currently happening. Did that cause heart
palpitations at all on your end?
Honestly, no. Our main focus is to get the application out there and get people to use it. Because the second person you meet on the street, they're having the same idea. They're just not having access to the funds. So my suggestion is that people shouldn't be too paranoid with ideas in their heads and not speaking to other people, because the minute you speak, someone will be like, I know someone who's building that, don't you want to partner with them? Maybe you can feint or say, okay, I'll go partner with them, you know. So it's a catch-22 type situation, and it's not that easy to patent IT solutions. It's, you know, the novelty of it is not that clear. And I just suggest guys to build solutions and drop them into the market and see how they fare.
I think, and this is my experience with Accenture, because as part of this program, for instance, the first thing that Accenture will tell you, just to formalize this arrangement, say, guys, we're coming together, and in the process, you're going to be building good products, cutting-edge products, and you're releasing this cutting-edge technology. But Accenture is very open to say, look, guys, the ideas you come in with are still your ideas. We'll help you grow them. So for me, it's not a question of, oh, Accenture is bringing on all these ideas so that they can build this and then call it their own. So I think that's the first level, because then it allows you to develop that product, get it to a point at which you can then, it's clear it's a patent or it's IP, and then you can go register it, because Accenture is saying, I've supported you through that. Okay, if you go get more clients and you don't have the capacity to deliver, then we can come in and support you. So that has been my experience. But I wanted to comment on Zandile's point around the cost and how innovatively Accenture allows entrepreneurs like us deal with the cost element. My biggest cost and how I raised funding was, I consider myself lucky because I managed to put something away over the last 3-4 years within Accenture. But even then, I think by the time I signed up my first client, I was left with a month of my buffer. And I was like, okay, if this month doesn't work out, I'm going to knock back and say, guys, can I have my job back? And luckily enough, through the relationships, I managed to sign. But the element of supporting, the biggest cost is labor. It's labor, accessing skilled resources. you as a small company cannot start competing with the benefits that Accenture gives. But Accenture comes out and said, guys, we have these wonderful programs. It's graduate programs. And because it's Accenture, it's a big brand, graduate programs are attracted to it. So they say, come and access this. Get the resources you want out of this. Go and manage your costs of labor. Train them. We'll support you through the training in terms of how to do things. And that goes a long way in reducing the cost of labor, which for me is the biggest cost. So that is how, one, the savings helped, but it stopped at a certain point, and Accenture came in with all these multiple ways without necessarily giving you cash, but saying you have access through our brand. Go and pick the people that you need, and then you can grow them, and later on you have an option to employ them or to put them back for them to go find employment.
Exactly. Operational efficiencies was also the other arm and element of this conversation and program that you obviously highlighted. But I'd also want to understand, Tebogo, from your perspective, and Zandile, feel free to come in, open question to the panelists as well, regarding this innovative platforms that are established, understanding the legal framework and ensuring that you have a solid exchange of ideas and this free flow of conversations as to this worked for me, how do I ensure that it might work for the next entrepreneur? How do you pay that forward from your perspective, Tebogo, when it comes to issues not only that you've learned and have been implemented throughout the program and benefited your institution, but ensuring that you help and assist your colleagues and peers in the industry as well. As Thabo said, the pie is big enough, and without communicating with each other, then we're all not in it for the long term.
In fact, one of the benefits of being part of this type of program is the opportunity to collaborate and exchange the benefits that you've reaped from the program. I mean, the key benefits I'm getting from the program is project leadership and mentorship. And Accenture has a very strong innovation and mobility team. And since I'm in the mobile app space, I've managed to be able to go forward beyond what we could have had I held on to my ideas. I just want to agree with Thabo that obsession with intellectual property actually stands to growth in mobile tech.
Would you say that's a problem in South Africa, specific to South Africa, or do some of our global peers share the same challenges?
I think it's probably a global phenomenon because people are still stuck into protecting their ideas. And the worst thing is your idea is as fresh as probably today, and you're probably protecting this idea that's going to be very stale and out of date by the time you actually want to go to town with it. So the attitude is generally to collaborate in whatever opportunities you get, because you get networking, business networking, you get skills transfer and share through collaboration. And I think it also assists SMEs to actually get out there, and it helps them with getting things moving. Because if you're holding on to your ideas, you're scared to do a prototype because you have to do an NDA here first with the developer, and then you have to do, you're scared to share it with Accenture, but Accenture is assisting you, so there's just no movement.
And it shows where your heart is. If your obsession is to solve a problem, just get a couple of people, then solve the issue. But if you want to make money and be the next Facebook or whatever, you're gonna hang on to something that might benefit or maybe doesn't have value. So our suggestion is that let's share them. Obviously, don't post them on Twitter and
that might be a bit risky.
But feel free to share with people without maybe divulging much of what you have in mind, but just to hear if there's common ground and people are willing to help.
I believe big ideas have a safety net around them. Guys like Elon Musk are not scared to put out an idea, say, come on board if you can, because they know that, it's their idea and they have a certain vision, and then with the right collaborators, it's going to get off the ground. Yeah. So, and, an opportunity to be part of an ESTP program with a big brother company like Accenture it should be, an opportunity that, one should jump at, because there's only so much you can do in your small garage office, and things don't get moving.
I think collaboration, I completely agree. I think Accenture has created a platform, and it doesn't have to be even involved in our conversations. For instance, through the program, I've met another small business that just came to me and said, Felix, you know what, this is what we're trying to do. And one, your Accenture experience, two, what your business is doing, we can collaborate and make this bigger. And again, the barrier of IPs was non-existent. So me wearing my IP had said, guys, aren't you worried that I'm going to run away with your idea? And I said, no, Felix, we're going to build this together, and I think it's an integrated thing. And we're already working on something that we're probably going to go back to Accenture and say, there's something here that we're sitting on that we need, either at this point we need you to come in and support us in terms of capacity and funding in order to blow it up. So we've used it as a platform for collaboration, and for me that is priceless. We would never have met outside of the ESTP program, or it would have been harder for us to meet because probably we're more wary. But the fact that we're sitting around the same room, it's already indicating that we have a common sort of way of thinking, and we all want something similar. So,
exactly.
So for me, that platform, I think, it's a collaborative platform.
Exactly. Well, we're going to take a quick ad break, but when we come back, we take a look a lot more in depth now at these collaborative efforts, and more importantly, how to ensure that there's sustainability to these enterprises that are being developed today. We'll be back right after the short break. Welcome back to this edition of Leading in the New. We'll be now taking a closer look at the role that SMEs play in South Africa's economy and what needs to be done to help cultivate the sector so much more. Still with me in studio to share their feedback, my guests, Zandile Njamela, who's the Enterprise Supplier Development Program Lead at Accenture, Tebogo Mokobo, who is the founder of Pixel Entropy, Felix Sekatawa, who's the founder and managing director of Busy Tech Innovations, and Thabo Shogolo, who's the founder of Afrocast. Well, just before the ad break, was touching very strongly on the element with regard to not only regulation but ongoing collaboration, which is quite an important element and feat. And we know that Accenture is a global company, Zandile, and you've had the opportunity as well to interact with many of your peers from a global perspective. But how do we see this collaborative effort when it comes to not only Accenture's ESDP program focused in South Africa, but the global reach that we're also looking to establish here?
So the benefit of this program is that Accenture globally has a program called Diverse Supplier Development Program. And it currently operates in the US, Canada, and UK. So South Africa then became the fourth region to adopt this type of program. And the program basically, it's the mentorship arm and providing support training to SMEs. So it's done in these 3 other regions, and we're doing it in South Africa. And we leverage what the other regions have been doing. It's our second year now within the program. And we leverage the best practices in terms of what worked for them, and then obviously we infuse our own local flavor. So in South Africa, we're doing much more than what the other regions are doing, because obviously the mandating of the BE codes having to do much more for black entrepreneurs, and because the plight is that much more. So, but also just to pick up on the power of collaboration, I am so happy that my fellow panelists and my beneficiaries definitely see the benefit of that, because also as a corporate and as a program lead, I collaborate with other organizations to increase the impact and continue to have sustainability and sustainable growth for my beneficiaries. So I'll go to the likes of HP, where some of my beneficiaries were invited to a think tank to become suppliers and business delivery support for HP. So it's a power of collaboration, right? Because I'm extending access to market to another organization. And I have various discussions with other organizations where we're saying that, listen, I'm busy developing and panel beating the next big ICT companies here. It is in your best interest to partner with me and also have the opportunity to engage them and have them deliver services and products to your organization. So it becomes a win-win situation. But also to add to that, we're definitely going a step bigger later on in the year. What we're doing that we've got one common vision, 10 organizations, 100 SMEs in the ICT sector to create 1,000 jobs.
Goodness.
Yes, so we're going big, we're scaling up because we believe that SMEs in the ICT, it's the way to create job opportunities. ICT business are able to scale up, right? So we're linking these entrepreneurs and saying, what is the next big wave in ICT in the next 5 to 10 years? And how does that spectrum look like? Where are the opportunities for growth for ICT companies? And what we're saying that with 10 corporates, we're going to link you into that. We're going to take you through two-year development program. At the third year, contracts and supply chain integration must happen. So, I mean, Felix, very early on in his business, already he's looking at about a 3 to 5 man staff, right? So if you think about it, as he grows, right, the amount of employees is going to be able to employ, we're looking at in excess of 10, right, in such a short space of time. And that's why we're confident that this is what we're going to do it. And we're leading into the new with SMEs in this country.
And we know the ripple effects that also has. I mean, employing 10 people or even more people within your institution has ripple effects with regard to the economic impact, especially in South Africa. But paint a picture for us as well. When we hear about these programs, we always get so excited. But how do we ensure that the sustainability takes place, Sandile, especially after the 2 or 3 year training program, contracts are in place, procurement procedures are followed, but small businesses don't want to stay small forever, if I'm not mistaken. How do we ensure that the bigger picture improves more significantly, where we're not just relying on these corporate companies to hand out contracts to us?
Of course. So how we're doing it is that there is an exit plan at the end of the 2 years, right? And each and every SME at the end of the 2 years, they need to tell me, because I envision an SME in an excess of 15 million. The minute you get to that level...
Is that revenue or profit?
Revenue, all right? Your net revenue is in excess of 15 million, all right, reaching up to 30 million. And what we're saying that at that level, one, mandated by BEE, you need to have some sort of development that you're taking place within your organization, some skills development, enterprise development, socio-economic development. So you come back to us as an Accenture and say, we'll assist you get that, right? But by doing that, you pave the way for the next generations of entrepreneur that you as an organization, you support. So that's part of our exit strategy. I mean, in our first year, we had 7 beneficiaries. All of them were in excess of 22 million.
Sure.
Right, net revenues. And they come back, one of the beneficiaries have come back now into the program, and they're going to be providing the operating model, right, because they've got an app in terms of a solution to say, how do you become an efficient operating organization right from the start, and then you don't have to pick it up only at a later stage. So it becomes a full circle within the program, and that's what we encourage as well for our beneficiaries to do. Felix also touched on terms of how we reduce the labor cost, leveraging on our own programs. So all of them have the option, and are always encouraged to say, take an intern into your organization with the skills and capabilities that you require for your solution or your service that you're putting out in the market. And the stipend is paid for, right? So for that period. And then at the end of a year or 6 months, you employ that person, and then you've got a person within your organization that you helped build. And then such organization, I mean, they go definitely beyond one intern. They've got multiple interns that start in, and that becomes a skills development entry for that intern. Exposure to the workplace. And it's a best exposure, because in an SME environment, you become a jack of all trades, right? So that SME is not going to be like just a receptionist. They're going to learn a variety of skills. And after their internship term, then they've got a choice to say, wow, where do I go with this? Obviously, option 1 is to stay with the organization and grow from there. But I mean, even if it's an exit point at that point in time, we have contributed in terms of workplace experience and skills development. So it is a fundamental of ours that at your exit point in the program, you need to have a clear strategy in terms of how do you pave your way forward back into the program and the greater economy as well.
There's several themes that you highlighted there, but skills, again, is so critical. And perhaps throwing back to the entrepreneurs, I can recall a time where everyone was studying IT. It was the buzzword and the craze that you need to study IT and your career will be set. But speaking of IT, it's evolved into ICT and all these innovations and technologies now where Java is not just a cup of coffee that you might get, as you individuals would know. But talk to us about, again, coming back to the program and not only upskilling yourselves as entrepreneurs and innovators to always make sure that you're ahead of the curve with the latest development or program that you're looking to establish, but the individuals as well that you look to take in within your organizations, whether they start out as interns or well-respected individuals who have the same stripes within the industry, as to how do you ensure that not only are the skills appropriate, how only are the skills developed even further, but also continually evolving on top of their game as well. Are there potential links that we also need to establish here with educational institutions? Because we know that often at times they are the laggards when it comes to the advancements as well in this regard. Is there a perfect balance? Felix, let's start with you.
I think there is, but my angle on sustainability is more to do with the relationship. For instance, in Bizitech, we have a very deliberate strategy that once we're at a client, we will remain at a client. Now, we walk in at a client, perhaps it's just me going to speak to the C-suite. In 6 months, I want 2 interns in there. But I'm still talking to the C-suite in there. Now, for me, sustainability is that client recognizing and saying, okay, I still need Bizitech here because strategically, I can still have an Accenture on the side, but Bizitech is here because of the agility and the flexibility and so forth and so forth. So what was one person initially, it's 2 interns. Those 2 interns have grown to understand the business. They're employees on my side. They graduate into higher levels of providing advice to the client and the colleagues there. So if you replicate that model across the clients that you're gaining as you go, for me, it's sustainability. But remember how these interns came in. The interns came in through the partnership with Accenture, for instance, extending that access to candidates. We can't lose that because now you have already these interns who are doing well, you've retained, and they can almost be testimonials to whoever wants to come in. So for me, I'm very deliberate around that in terms of how I play back the people elements that I've learned through my experience, my previous experiences, to make sure that I create Bizitech as a small organization a desirable place to work, and that they all understand my focus and how I think about client relationships. So that's how I think about sustainability. Yeah.
Fantastic. I also wanted to get your view here on that briefly, Thabo, because I do understand your organization started as a 3-man team, but that's also growing some feet now and passing the baton onto other developers as well and participants in your firm.
Yeah, as a startup, when we started having an idea, going out there, running with the idea, trying to get developers to collaborate as we didn't have money, it was a challenge to find developers who are who are not doing a 9-to-5 and who are open to collaborate with us, you know, and through our integration into the program at Accenture and having interns on our team, we are now working on a 2nd generation of developers who, not only in Africa, but in Bizitech and Deviate and all other companies that are growing. There's an ecosystem of developers who are now having the culture of a startup. They understand how we work because majority of the developers at the moment are still having, you know, the large corporate blue chip way of thinking, whereby you get at work at this time and you knock off at this time, and when you get home, this is. But in a startup world, we don't have that. We have to deliver at any time. We have to get our product out there. So the culture, not only the skill, is changing and it's growing, and it's permeating into our client space also, where they see that, you know what, you have these people who are here just to deliver a service, not only focusing, I clock in at this time and I deliver this, but we are just there to deliver a service. So the way we approach business as startups, as developers, is changing, you know, the ecosystem of the bigger companies. Sure. Where they are seeing value at how we approach this whole tech space.
Thabo, what also strikes me about your organization is that it's based in Alexandra, a township in South Africa which has produced phenomenal individuals such as yourself and many others clearly being cultivated in your organization. And that again goes to the stereotype so often that we have with regard to entrepreneurship, that perhaps the tech innovators won't be situated in the township and all they do perhaps is a car wash, hair salon and a chisanyama, and that's the guaranteed way to perhaps make some kind of living. But again, breaking those barriers, are we succeeding in perhaps also taking away the tag and title of a township economy purely based on its location?
You mentioned kawas, chisanyama and salons. Those are our clients. I mean, those are businesses and they need tech behind them. Mm-hmm. Normally they use pen and paper. So we are coming in and say, you know, you can use this small app to do Y, 1, 2 and 3. And we're finding a receptive market for ourselves. And being in the township is quite amazing. I mean, a lot of style for many corporates. They know that it starts in the township. Either you are in marketing, either you want to launch a product. You first need to know who are the thought leaders, and the go-to place is in the township because those people are in touch with what's happening on the ground. So by immersing ourselves in the midst of those people, we know that we will be at the initial curves of whatever is happening, what's bubbling under. So by the time the big corporates get wind of it, we'll be selling them, well, IPs at that time. So we do copyright at some point. But yeah, being in the township is quite a very interesting time where you have, you know, saloon people opening up to say, I have an idea for an app. Can you do an app for me?
That's
so we
amazing.
do get that, and it's quite amazing to
so
be part
I
of
can
that
decide to do my dry curl, get my car washed, and order lunch all at the same time.
At the same
if I
time.
make it to
Yes.
Alex regarding your program. But I'm so excited with regard to these innovations because so often, especially in the South African environment, and Debocho, you can probably attest to this too, when you think innovation, when you think ICT and you think app developers, you think one needs to be based in Stellenbosch. And perhaps that goes back to that skills exchanges and ongoing collaboration, and that through the power and influence of Accenture and their participation in this program, that again, borderless are endless. Perhaps paint a picture for us with regard to breaking down those stereotypes and again, playing on the global stage when it comes to these partnerships.
I've been in touch with a couple of governmental entities, and they've actually communicated some of the initiatives they've started, such as the Innovation Hub actually has spots within like the townships. So, I mean, it's not all about Silicon Valley or Silicon Cape.
Yeah.
It is actually, there's a lot that's happening, and I've exchanged ideas with a couple of people that have come up with an Uber for that in the township, like 4 car washes, 4 hair salons, where, you know, I mean, because it's communicative technology, you're able to collaborate with anyone. And the borders, I mean, you're not bound or have to be working within a certain space. Like you have to be, for instance, like, you know, like you mentioned, Stellenbosch. I mean, some of the suppliers that I work with are based in the Northwest. Some people are, you know, as far as in Mpumalanga. As long as we are able to, you know, use instant messaging, email, and we can share files, we are able to collaborate, and you are onboarding people that were in most instances excluded from the economic mainstream. So technology is bringing up a whole lot of people to be participants within technology. Yeah.
So true. I'm glad you bring that up, and there are 2 other themes that I want us to explore before we do get our closing remarks and comments, but that's the ability of technology to allow African states in particular to leapfrog certain stages of development. We all know about the Ushahidi craze, which kicked off in Kenya and now is being used as a global phenomenon. Talk to us if there's appropriate recognition of innovation and technology as this appropriate disruptor and change of things, especially in the way that we do our daily living. From an African perspective, is that being recognized recognized? And secondly, if it is being recognized, I know, Thabo, you can obviously talk about some of the successes you attained at winning awards and where some of these app developments have been acknowledged. Perhaps let's start off with the first point. If we actually do understand and it's being accepted, in particular by the government side of things when it comes to understanding technology as a significant disruptor.
I think there's a growing understanding that with Africa being a mobile-first environment, in fact, Mark Zuckerberg was in Africa about 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
Yeah, because I mean, and everyone sees Africa as the next hot space for technological development, and there's a lot of mobile-first focused development, even from the West, because Africa has been seen as the go-to place. So now, whenever one develops a solution, we don't always start with desktop version anymore.
True.
You actually start with mobile, which means that there has been recognition given to Africa as an environment and mobile technology as an economic enabler.
I also agree with that. I mean, definitely we still have a long way to go, but in terms of recognition, it's there. In terms of recognizing that technology innovation is the new frontier in terms of growth in Africa, I definitely believe that. Our program just won first place for economic empowerment at the Gender Mainstream Awards last week, Thursday. You know, and that attests to the fact that the economy is realizing that we are leading to the new using ICT businesses, and these are small black businesses, and there's innovation there. So if you miss out on the township economy, if you miss out or you exclude the black entrepreneur, either within your organization, you're missing out on that new innovation. Innovative. You know, innovative ways of doing things, that in new innovation that you can infuse in your service offering as a big corporate. So I definitely believe that we are moving to the new frontier. ICT is the next big wave. SMEs, black SMEs are the next big catalyst for growth in this country. And the more we support them, the more we're going to expand our horizon as a country, and as a continent, definitely. Yeah.
I just want to add on what Zandile said. The platform that Accenture is helping Africas develop, we actually won an opportunity to be on an entrepreneur exchange program 4 weeks ago, where I went to Seattle for a week. And we went to companies like Google, Amazon, and we met a lot of startups, which when I say startups, it's not comparable to us. We're talking people who make first round, they make like $64 million as seed, just to start an idea.
Goodness.
So that's how the ecosystem in Seattle is. And there's an understanding between large companies like Boeing, Amazon, Google, who are based there, who understand that as they import developers from all over the world, those developers are not going to stay in their companies for long. They leave, but they encourage them to stay within the city, knowing that they will employ, they will start startups there, and the ecosystem just feeds itself. So what I heard about Africa, how they look at Africa, is that Kenya, well, I'm an African, but I'm a South African. Kenya is leading in their brain thought. I mean, M-Pesa and stuff like that, they're very high on their vocab when they speak about Africa. And what I got is that the fact that we missed out on the PC revolution, where we didn't have connectivity and stuff like that, that disadvantage made us to be the leaders in in mobility, because we were pushed to use our mobiles to do things that PC were meant to do. So on mobile banking, on apps, Africa is on the leading front, and the people in other countries, they are cognizant of that, and they are coming in their droves. So I'm encouraging everyone to take a look in the space that we are playing. You know, contact us and offer us your funding. I mean, if you need to invest, we're here, because we're on the leading front of this wave.
I like that.
Yeah.
I'd like to wrap up very briefly with closing comments, because as we know, the opportunities are ripe, the entrepreneurs are there, we're paying it forward by also cultivating a level of skills exchange. But Felix, if I can come to you just to get your closing remarks as to how you hope your organization, your contributions will be relevant in the next 10 years on the back of the Enterprise Supply Development Program established by Accenture. Very briefly.
I think I would like to link it to the previous discussion. I mean, I'm originally from Uganda, and seeing all this innovation happening in South Africa and the level of startups happening, whenever I take a trip back home, I say, wow, these guys should actually come and be based here. So just a few weeks ago, I attended the Demo Africa, where different African startups came to present their ideas. And one of the panelists asked the question of, do you have any plans of relocating to Silicon Valley? And I'm going like, no. Can't we have our own Silicon Valley somewhere and later on I learned that the World Bank is actually working on initiatives to try and encourage that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So for me, Bizitech, in 10 years, I need to be playing on the continent. And I think that's it. Taking the model, what has worked here, and blowing it up over the continent.
Conquer the continent. Debogo, very briefly, and then we'll come to you,
Okay,
Zandile.
well, Pixel is already working on an exit strategy and a sustainability plan that will be impactful for economic inclusion and mass employment. Accenture is assisting with a business plan for the Black Industrial Scheme that government has put out there, so that we are able to make an impact within the South African economy, and we hope in that way we'll be able to give back and also to see black businesses and entrepreneurs grow within the ICT space, and with big help from Accenture, I think we want to get there.
Clearly, Accenture is not going anywhere. 10 corporates, 100 entrepreneurs, 1,000 jobs going to be created soon.
100%, and that's the new focus we're moving towards. That we're scaling up this program, we're scaling up the support. We've seen it work. It's a return on investment into the organization. It is not an expense. Accenture does not see it as an expense. Accenture does not see it as a tick boxing exercise. We're investing in these young, black, phenomenal ICT businesses, and Accenture is reaping the rewards. And what we're saying, that 10 corporates, it's out there, contact us, come to us, let us help you do it for your own organization, because it's about increasing impact, it's about scaling up. So we've got a winning formula, it has been working, and we've got the trophy to prove it now that it's definitely working. So definitely come through to us. But I want to say to an entrepreneur who's watching us today, finally you've got somebody to look up to. You know, there are 3 guys that have paved the way. They took the risk, they took the plunge and went out there into the market to do something incredible. And here's an organization that is supporting them. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Take the leap with a good product. Come through and let us assist you with that.
Fantastic. We certainly wish you all the best in your endeavors in the future, and thank you so much for your participation on today's panel. And again, the collaborative efforts that clearly are a significant theme throughout the conversation today. But that's where we have to leave it, unfortunately, for this week's edition of this show. But a big thank you once more to my guests for their participation. Zandile Njamela, who's the Enterprise Supply Development Program Lead at Accenture. Debogo Mokobo, who's the founder of Pixel Entropy. Felix Sekatawa, who is the founder and managing director of Bizitech Innovations, and Thabo Shokholo, who's the founder of Afrocast. As we know, the market is ripe, innovators are there, and through collaborative efforts, surely success will be attained, where perhaps Africa overall will be viewed as the Silicon Valley of the globe, where ICT is at the frontier. But until next time, thank you so much for joining us. It's goodbye for now.